and Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Now introducing the one and only Ben Stowe.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. This is the place where you do not have to listen to Jack Black sing Ben's name over and over in a very agonizing love song. That's a reference to Peaches, by the way, Ben, if you haven't heard it yet.
Oh, you missed it totally, yeah. So,
well, if you haven't heard it, go listen to Peaches by Jack Black.
I was like, Jack Black sang a song about me? That's cool.
Well, he's saying about Peaches, but, you know, if it would be your name, and no one will have to hear that agonizing love song.
Doesn't Jack know that peaches come from a can?
He
by a man in a factory downtown?
You would think he would know that, but no, he's
a bright guy. I mean,
sharing his love for the Mario Princess Peach.
Oh, yeah, I did hear vaguely about that.
Yeah.
Well, now you know I don't get out much.
Yeah, that you're too busy working all the time. But someday they're going to let you.
Speaking of not getting out much, I was just reading the news before I did the show, and that's something I do more than I should probably, but I like to be caught up on things. And I just saw that the actress who did the green Jell-O scene in Jurassic Park has just recreated the scene, and she's now 43.
Okay.
Which blows my mind because that makes her very close to my age. And I mean, you know, wait, she's the little girl with the green Jell-O scene, but apparently that was 30 years ago. I don't know. I mean, who knew?
How time flies.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, wait a minute, the little girl from Jurassic Park is like
that
in the window of dateability for me. I mean, if I wasn't happily married, I'm like, you know, that's like.
I could have been having
seem right.
green Jell-O. What's up? No.
Yeah. And by the way, music lovers, I'm sure there's one or two on this show. If not, you know, be sure to catch Howie and Jay afterwards. But I actually have a green Jell-O CD.
Oh.
From the 90s. So.
And that's the actual. I mean, I think somewhere in the CD cassette singles, I had. And what was their big song that they?
Three Little Pigs.
Three Little Pigs. Yeah, there we go.
Little pig,
let me in. Yeah, that's what I got. Yeah. I had a cassette single of that because we played it so much, like once.
Yeah, I actually have a green Jell-O CD, not green jellies.
Wow, that's really not that valuable. You're not going to be able to retire off the proceeds.
Yeah, it's probably worth $5 or $6.
Yeah, sure.
No,
maybe not.
All right.
So tonight,
maybe it's worth that to the actress who played in Jurassic Park.
Exactly. You know, here, see this? You know, you can, and I'll even sign it.
That's right.
It'll be great. So tonight, gang, we're going to talk about speaker placement, because as people are getting out and doing shows and they're showing pictures and saying, hey, look at my system, give me some feedback, but don't say anything mean or don't point out any of my problems. Just say good things. Pretty much that's what people are saying. I mean, I kind of read between the lines in those last few parts of it.
It sounds like give me affirmation, right?
Pretty much. That's what they're after. But in reality, there's times where you look at something and it's like, okay, your intention is good. Your intentionality is fabulous. But then there's this reality thing. And we always have to come back to the idea of making sound and making good sound.
Well, if you came here for affirmation, you probably came to the wrong place. I just had a really good but forthright meeting about concert safety procedures, and I won't get into all the details. But one of the numerous participants in the meeting, a conference call, texted me during the call and said, "That's what I love about you, right to the point." So if you've come for answers, you've come to the right place. If you've come for affirmation, I won't promise that. I think that the best way for me to serve you, the best way for me to be useful to you, is to tell you the truth.
Very much so. And that's what we're into tonight. Da-da-da, without Jack Black.
So if I hurt your feelings,
ice cream solves a lot of problems. I'm just saying.
That's right. Go have some ice cream and get over it and come back and make better sound, right? You know, like, it's not personal. We can still be friends. I love you all. That's why I'm taking the time on my Tuesday night, instead of reading more articles about 30-year-old movies, to tell you the things that will help you make better sound. Because
especially ones that have dessert products in it. I mean, if it's got dessert in it, that's pretty impressive.
I am probably going to go get some green Jell-O after this.
I'm actually thinking now the ice cream after bringing it up. Yeah.
You know what? Green Jell-O flavored ice cream feels like it could be a thing.
That could be.
That's what I'm saying. All right, we better talk audio.
Marcus had a question. We're going to hit this one actually right away. Thank you, Marcus, for we got a lot of folks in the chat rooms and things.
Brave people right away. They're like,
right, yeah.
Well,
It's a speaker question. It doesn't fit our topic tonight, but it's a speaker question, and I like this. He has an Evolve 30M, and he's wondering, is there any difference? Is it better to use inputs 5 and 6 than inputs 1 and 2 on the speaker?
Well, I would say my standard answer is it depends. If you're using the mic preamp, they're going to be the same. I don't remember off the top of my head if there's anything that's available on 1 and 2 that's not available on 5 and 6, like, for example, certain effects or things. I don't recall that. But my recollection is that all the mic pre's in terms of that are going to be the same circuitry. Now, 5 and 6, I think, is the stereo channel, right?
Yes. Yep. I'm looking at it right now. So 5 and 6 is input 5 and 6. It has one. You push the button to have the control over both of them, and then it comes down into the multi-input jacks there, the XLR and the quarter inch, and then it goes down into the RCA, and then it goes down into the 1/8 inch. So I mean, you got a lot of stuff going on in those.
That kind of answers that was what I was trying to recall, and that was my recollection. So if you have a unbalanced stereo input, then yeah, 5 and 6 might be a great option. And of course, a plus of doing that, if you have an unbalanced stereo input, is you now have preserved 2 of your other mic preamps for that purpose. So, but in either case, if you're going XLR into the mic pre, I don't think it much matters.
And I think this is one of before we went on air, I was just talking to Ben about we've been using the Everse a lot and doing different things with that and practicing really with them as I'm teaching a couple of new DJs. And the Evolve 30M and the 50M have that capability of, if my controller dies, if I have a cable to get from my laptop to that first speaker, I can run a full sounding show using the back of those mixers and do an awful lot of different things with that because it is so functional.
It continues to impress. I continue to have to eat the humble pie because I didn't think that's where Evie should focus their efforts, and I was wrong. They made a great speaker, and they've proven me wrong in spades. So now I just hope they get around to making the speaker I told them to make. So we'll see if that comes
exactly.
out.
For those of you wondering, this is the one that has the wheels that pop down, and then it has a steering wheel that pops up, and it goes like 65 miles an hour across the fairgrounds.
It's probably a few years off, but I do know for a fact they are working on one of the speakers that I kind of drew up for them a few years ago, and it's going to be very, very cool when it comes out. So,
excellent. Well, we're
probably I would guess 2 to 3 years before you'll see it, which is hard to wait and watch. But I guess it depends on when you're watching this video, doesn't it?
Yeah, it could be. Maybe somebody's like, "Hey, remember back in the old day when they talked about Jack Black? That was a good show. Let's go watch it again." Could be that. Could be that. Huh? Right. Marcus mentions, of course, when he hooks into channel 1, he gets a clipping very quickly with that. So I'm guessing he must be a gain.
That's what it sounds like.
Incompatibility there. And again, Marcus, on the back of the, you can push the little kind of white line button above the channel and adjust the volume in there or the gain there. And if you have that too high, which my boys decided they were going to do that just to show me that it could be done, you're going to have problems. It's that whole gain structure thing. We've talked about that in some other shows, and it's not, we won't dig into that tonight because that's a topic and a half for it within itself. But if you can go use the other one, you're probably going to be a much happier camper. So, okay, let's talk about some of the common things that DJs do with their systems and makes us cringe.
Okay, what do you got?
Well, where do you want to start? I saw you had some notes that you had put together. Because I really want to, just some of the basics that when a lot of DJs are starting out and they put their tops, I've seen tops where they've been on, taking a 2-way cabinet, a 15-inch in a horn cabinet, and they've set them on the floor. And here we've got our DJ system. Or I've seen some where they set them in chairs, like they went and grabbed a couple of banquet table chairs, and not folding chairs, thankfully, because that would be tacky. But they've had a couple of and they set them in chairs.
Well, let's start there.
Let's start there, and first off, I think we all can visualize that and such. Let's dig into why that's not the most effective way to set up our sound system.
Well, if you're having trouble visualizing it, I'm going to help you.
Oh, nice!
I worked very hard on this drawing.
You did. That's
in between reading articles about green jello.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway. what we can see here is we've got our stick figure dancing man who's got his hands in the air because the DJ told him to.
And he I can see right from the expression on his face, he really does not care.
Does not care.
And not a bit.
One bit.
Not a bit.
And what I've tried to illustrate here with my two-way speaker is that the high frequency wavelengths are short wavelengths, they're smaller wavelengths, the low frequency wavelengths are long. Pardon the crude PowerPoint drawing, but I was rather proud of this.
Yeah, no, I like it. This is what we need to see.
And these shorter wavelengths are much easier to block and absorb than longer wavelengths. So by putting the speaker down on the ground, you're going to have a significant loss of clarity and articulation. High frequency is going to be absorbed and blocked very, very easily. So best thing is to get those tops up to about head height or so that those high frequencies can propagate to the rest of your listening area.
Excellent. And that can be done, of course, with a tripod stand, or many times if you're using subs, there's a pole to go between the two.
Yep. Or a rigging bracket. I mean, any mechanism to get the speaker up higher is going to be favorable.
So having your significant other stand there and hold it all night is not a good idea. I'm just going to put that out there. Then
I didn't
again,
say that.
It could be, I mean, honey, you don't need a health club. You can come and lift these speakers for me.
You know, we did have a young man who recently started. He is a music major at the university, and he was sort of joking. He's like, as a musician, I don't really have time to go to the gym, and he worked some of the outdoor concerts that we just got done doing, and was observing that the rest of us who do this regularly are quite fit.
Mm-hmm.
I said, don't worry, by the end of the summer,
Yeah, it comes. It'll get you. Yeah.
you'll look the same. Yeah.
It'll find its way and make you looking more svelte. Great. Okay, let's look at our next situation. This is one out back, I remember, in the late 80s and early 90s, as we were getting into more powerful speakers, and we were getting into trying to get the concert sound, and then there was the surround sound thing that became a thing. And I've seen that recently starting to kind of rear its head. And what I mean by surround sound is that we have our dance floor area, and DJs are having speakers in multiple spots. They've got their two basically kind of front that are going towards the dance floor, and then they've got two on the other end of the dance floor facing back towards the center of the dance floor. So you end up having four speakers, in essence, in the corners, aiming towards the center of the dance floor. So let's dig into that. Is that, first off, giving a person surround sound?
Well, it is, in the sense that they are surrounded by sound. You know, most audio tracks are a 2-track recording, left, right, so you don't have true surround information. I would call it more of an immersive sound than a surround sound.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I don't hate it. You know, I mean, to me, it sort of defies the traditional listening experience of a left-right source, but I don't hate it. Normally, I like to not have too many speakers overlapping each other with their coverage. But you've got a crowd out there, hopefully. I mean, you know, if you're, you know, playing good tunes, right? You know, but you've got a crowd out there that's sort of breaking up the sound, and I feel like I'm going to take kind of a neutral position on it, you know?
How far can you have a distance between your front speakers and we've talked about time align issues, and the next speakers before you start to notice that they're not timed? You're getting that sound from this one, you know, a little bit later than this one. What is that noticeable at 25 feet? Is it 10 feet?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be noticeable at 25, and increasingly more so. You know, it's going to really just be sort of a loss of intelligibility or clarity at 25, and then it's going to get worse from there. They say that a perceptible difference is about 7 milliseconds, and it's about 0.89 milliseconds per foot. So you could sort of extrapolate that and say, well, what is that, 9 feet, 8 feet, something like that, you know, but that's probably just where you would just begin to notice it. And in a dance floor environment, I don't think it's going to be a perceptible thing. I think it's going to become increasingly perceptible with those increases in distances. But, you know, then you talk about, you know, relative amplitude of source and that sort of thing. I feel like this one could be, that's probably not going to become a concern with a typical dance floor size, you know, would be my thing. You know, it might be a little bit weirder if you had, like, if you're just talking speech intelligibility, you know, as opposed to dance floor music, you know?
So I saw a concert, concert pictures from one where they had a catwalk that went out. So they had the stage with their flying speakers, as you've shown us on numerous occasions, and then they actually had some speakers that were above the catwalk that were also going out to the crowd. When they're doing things like that, they have to go and have those all basically dialed in to avoid having those kind of issues with the sound canceling and time align issues. I would imagine
Absolutely.
that would add a whole nother layer of difficulty having these speakers all the way around.
It does. The good news is on a tour like that, you often are working with the same measurements. You know, you're rolling into various stadiums, but you've got a rigging plot and you've got a layout that's generally pretty close. So once you get it right, you're going to be very close everywhere. You're going to be making minor adjustments at most, you know. So it's not something that they have to do from scratch every time.
Mm-hmm. So let's take our 4 speakers stands. Instead of having the stacks in the corners, we're going to bring them back, and we're basically going to go across the front of our DJ space, and we're going to maybe space them out, library 4 to 6 feet. So there's a stack, and then 6 feet, another stack, and then another stack, and another stack. Are we going to have any issues by a setup like that?
Yeah, I take a much firmer position on that. I think that's a no-go. And I'll show you why real quick, actually. Give me a second to pull this up.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to maybe be, I maybe need to explain this a little bit, but let's take a look. So what we've got here, let's draw some speakers in here, is roughly we've got 2 speakers here, we'll just say,
Mm-hmm.
that are about 6 feet apart. And what we can see is what's happening to our pattern. And in essence, we have this interference between our speakers, and this happens to be at 1 kilohertz, and this would look very different at different frequencies because frequency dictates wavelength. But this is exactly, if you've ever heard the expression comb filtering, you can see why, because it looks like a comb. So that's what we've done, is we've created a whole lot of comb filtering out there. And again, this being at 1K, and it's going to be different at different frequencies. So yeah, I take a much firmer position on don't do that. This is just 2 speakers 6 feet apart. And so you can imagine that would get, even worse if we had more of these stacks.
So now if we would put and we've talked about this in other shows just because we're here, if we would push those stacks together, and basically if we'd make one sound wall with all 4 stacks tight together, would we still have that comb filtering going on as much?
Yeah, and let's gonna do this one then. Let's take a look at this. So yeah, it's this is actually 2 speakers right next to each other, and this again is at 1 kilohertz. So I don't know why I'm bothering to try to write this out, but anyway, so there we can see this is at 1K, and at different frequencies this is going to do different things, but this is exactly again what we're seeing. In fact, let me see if I can do something here. This is 500 hertz. So here you can see how that changes from 1K to 500.
And again, 2 speakers are tight to each other.
Yep.
Wow.
So it's just not something we want to do. We want to try to avoid the overlap of those high frequency horns. So if you're going to put 2 speakers next to each other, let's do this. Let's just go. Let's go totally off script here. So let's say I've got 2 speakers. Oh boy.
Yeah, we're getting the idea.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you'll notice that I've kind of splayed them apart.
Mm-hmm.
So I've, kind of rotated this one out this way and this one out this way to minimize the overlap in here. That's going to help.
Mm-hmm.
So by doing this, I gain a couple things. I'm going to gain some low frequency coupling, at the frequencies, where we would have complete summation, but I'm also going to create a wider arc of coverage. So what I don't want to do is have 2 speakers like this, where I don't have them towed out at all.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't gained anything in terms of the arc of coverage, and now I have all this nasty comb filtering occurring in here.
And it could be, I mean, I've unfortunately set things up like that before we were doing shows and talked about that. And I was wondering why I was having some weird times where people were like, I can't hear the microphone in the middle of the room when there's, it's like, you're literally in a spot where you should be able to hear every announcement made, but they were like, it didn't sound right. And I wonder if that was indeed the case, is that it was just the right spot.
Certainly, because you're going to have cancellations occur at some frequencies and power alleys at others. You're going to have nulls and then thus the comb filtering. And what I would encourage everybody to do, I think this is really good science, is I would encourage everybody to go do it, not at a gig, but for the sake of science, take 2 of your speakers, put them both side by side facing forward. Probably the best thing to do is to play like pink noise. And you can usually, if you don't have a generator on your phone or a computer, you can download a pink noise file, but just play pink noise and then walk laterally in front of the speakers left to right, and you will very, very much hear that. And the reason pink noise is so good for this is because it's a consistent output, of equal energy across the octaves. So you can hear that variation in the sound from frequencies. You'll hear it pitch up and pitch down, or perceptibly you sound like that because we have these things occurring. So a really good way to hear what we just saw.
Sure.
And then, if you feel so inclined, when you got it set up, play a tune, and you'll hear that as you walk around. You'll go, wow, yeah, it's not quite right.
Doesn't sound right. Yeah, good. Yeah, that'd be kind of neat to do. I might have to actually do that with the boys and show them how that works. I never thought about using pink noise. I tried it with a song the other day, and it wasn't as noticeable as I was hoping it was going to be. It's like I was hoping there would be a dead alley. No, it wasn't.
Well, at certain frequencies there would be. And
yeah.
Of course, as you're walking around, then the challenge is hitting that null at the time that frequency is in the song. And, again, just because you maybe didn't notice in the song doesn't mean it's okay to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. It didn't didn't have the effect of what I was after. And so, but the pink noise would have done it for
very
sure.
much. It's going to be much more plain as you, again, walk laterally. And the nice thing about that pink noise is it's playing roughly the same sound consistently over and over again. So that gives the opportunity to hear this in different places and to hear that effect.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was just playing, Jack Black and hoping that I'd pick it up from that, but I didn't.
Okay. How would you, if you're playing Jack Black, how would you even know?
There was that.
How would you know if it sounded right?
Yeah, there is that. It is an interesting.
Sorry, Jack. I love you, Jack.
It is a little ditty. You'll have to check that out.
Kidding.
Okay, let's jump to talking subwoofers with our next one. We're gonna actually, I'm gonna add a little part of this, but first off, we're gonna talk about we see DJs who don't have 4 18-inch subs or 4 whatever, so they're mixing different sized sub boxes. So let's talk about that, and then I want to jump to mixing brands from because that many times happens also that I have 2 EV subs and my friend has got 2 RCF subs, and it's like, can we put them together? So let's talk about sub size and then let's hit the brands.
Well, I think everybody should go watch the subwoofer show we did. I know you need the views anyway, John. So everybody go watch the subwoofer show we did. But different drivers, different cabinets, different tunings, different frequency response makes it harder to achieve universal summation. So mixing sizes and mixing brands, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just might not be as good as you would want it to be. It could have some undesirable effects, but I feel like you would still gain what you're going for, which is the overall summation and increase in output. It just isn't going to occur equally across the whole spectrum. And depending on where those subs are placed and if the amplitudes are different, we could have some unintentional steering effects and things that would cause our pattern to move in ways that maybe we wouldn't understand. So I'm trying to think of how I want to answer that other than to say it isn't ideal, but I don't think it's the end of the world. You know, I don't know that a kitten would die if you did it, but some things that does happen. If you do certain things in the audio realm, a kitten dies.
So definitely.
You don't want to do that. I'm going to sort of take kind of a position on it. Watch the subwoofer show. I think will show you a lot about the different response, even amongst same brands, different drivers. So we're talking about the different size or different drivers within a family. But then, of course, that would be similar to mixing and matching brands because we'd have different drivers with different processing, different powers, different efficiencies, different maybe everything.
And just to, so if we're talking two brand A, brand B, whatever they are, and if they're both saying that they're 2,000 watt boxes and doing your thing, we could be putting the same signal coming from our board into those two, and they may respond noticeably different.
Noticeably different. So we don't listen to watts. Watts is a measure of electrical power, and let's just assume that they are each using the same wattage measurement, but they could have different efficiencies within the driver itself, thus a different actual output of SPL. Or even if they had the same efficiency, unlikely, they could have different frequency response. So now that response is different at different parts of the frequency. And again, I really do think that people seeing some of the charts and graphs that we put in that show, I think would be very enlightening, And
that's the link that I just put up a few minutes ago here when Ben brought it up. So you guys can click on that link and watch it at a different time if you haven't seen that show. And if you have, well, thank you for watching it as we come through. So we talked about subs at different sizes. Let's go back to our tops. We talked about we need to kind of splay them out a little bit, but can we mix a 15-inch in your drawing, which I noticed you had two matching speakers in your drawings. It was fabulous, by the way.
Thank you. I worked very hard on that.
Can we have like a 15 and then put a 12, or some lines have a 10? Can we do multiple sizes when it comes to the tops?
Certainly, because we're achieving different things here. We're not combining those tops for summation. We're combining those tops for coverage. So let's go to the whiteboard again. See if I can do this again. Let's see if I can really bat 1,000, so to speak. So I feel it getting rougher. So here's my 15s, we'll just call them. And let's say that, my coverage pattern ends here, but I've got people over here. We're going to see a lot of the stick man.
Yeah. Ooh, and they are ready to party. I can just see it.
So, anyway, all right. So we could put a outfill, we'll call it here, but we could put a little 10 or something out here to cover this area. And we're not so worried about this being different, as this. That's not a problem. We do that in the concert realm all the time, with front fills and things like that. So.
Now let's don't jump away here. Let's talk about that because that's another area I wanted to hit. Is you didn't need to delete that?
Oh well, I got something better if you want to talk about front fills.
Oh, okay. Then we'll talk about front fills and later, in order if you've got that. If you got something,
I threw a couple of graphics together, just sort of anticipating where you would go with this. So,
nice. We're gonna leave that one then for a little bit later. And so utilizing these side fills, but if a person were wanting to put them side by side like you did in your very first drawing, would that be a possibility, or are we going to have one overpowering the other too much, or doing something weird with an anomaly like that?
Well, again, don't overlap the horn patterns. They can be side by side, but facing different directions. Doesn't really matter. 15, 12, 10. It's going to be weird. It's going to be weird in different ways, but no part of it's going to be good. You don't magically get out of physics jail if you just use a 10 with a 15. So don't have those both facing forward. Don't overlap the horn patterns. And in fact, very often within a family of loudspeakers, the horn is the same between the 15, 12, and 10. So the only difference is going to be that mid-low driver. Frequency response is going to be very similar across much of the bandwidth. The larger driver is a little more efficient, yada, yada, yada. But bottom line, don't overlap the high frequency patterns. If it's a 90-degree box, splay them about 90 degrees apart.
And you'll be a much happier camper.
Yep, and you'll have much more coverage. We don't add more tops for increased amplitude. We add more tops for increased coverage.
Good to know. Add that on a T-shirt. Don't add more tops.
You probably could, workshop the wording a little bit.
Yeah, maybe, but otherwise, if we get paid by the letter when we're printing the T-shirts, yeah, we're good.
Not sure if that's how it works.
I was hoping. All right, let's talk about continuing on with tops. Let's talk about the pictures of that DJs have where they want to get those speakers up in the air a little bit so that they start stacking them, literally one on top of the other. And I've heard someone say, "Look, I created my own array." And these were with two-way cabinets. They are 15-inch two-way, 12-inch two-way. How much fun is that?
So I saw this ad on Facebook, and I have tried to block the seller's information out of respect for them. They say, and I quote the listing, EV line array type 15-inch 3,000 watt set. Also, they say $1,500 per set.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first of all, EV does not have a 15-inch line array.
No.
So that's not that. Second of all, these are not line array boxes. These are ZLX 15Ps. And I decided, because I own a version of the EV 12-inch line array, the X2 21290 and 120, that I would make a little comparison here.
Okay.
Using the ZLX 12, not the ZLX 15. But I'm really biting my tongue. So here is the ZLX on the left, and here is the X2 21290 or 120. I guess we couldn't tell by the box on the right. And you might say, well, they look very similar.
They look very similar.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
Yeah,
That was right on cue.
yeah. I was waiting for that.
EV has consistent branding and consistent look on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
But what's notable is ZLX is quite literally the bottom of EV's line. It's not saying it's a bad loudspeaker, but saying that is quite literally the bottom of EV's line. And the X2 on the right is the top of EV's line. So what gives, right? Well, a few things, a few notable differences. I mean, one, right away, we can see the logos are oriented differently on these boxes, kind of showing the direction in which they are intended to be used.
There is that tip.
Yeah, that's sort of kind of a dead giveaway. A couple other things we'll just take a look at real quick is here is this assembly is designed for flying.
Mm-hmm.
This box is intended to fly, and this solid chunk of aluminum goes the length of the box because it's designed to hang thousands of pounds safely and to angle it. There is no such device. There are not even hang points here for the ZLX. This is a plastic box designed to be lightweight and portable and easy to deploy for for portable use like DJ.
Yeah.
This is not. But that's not the only difference. The structural difference is certainly important, but it's not the only difference. Again, the line array boxes are designed to be arrayed, as we can see here, designed to create long and safe arrays. But when we just got done saying, well, wait, we're not supposed to put top boxes together, so what gives, right? Well, good. I'm glad you were paying attention, because that would be a very good thing to say. Well, how come line arrays work then if that's the case? Here's why. So on the top, we can see a cutaway of the X2 21290. And what we've got is we've got a mid-band waveguide here. Whoa, hey,
Ooh.
ahead of ourselves. Getting I'm on the wrong thing right here. There we go. We've got a mid-band waveguide here, and then we've got a high-frequency waveguide here. And what we've got with this waveguide is to prevent the comb filtering that we saw. The big wave comes in and it breaks it into these channels that cause the wave to be delayed, so that all the waves, the little waves now, as you can see here, exit as one continuous wave, and these go to the edge, so that when we add more boxes, that was really bad drawing.
Yeah, we get the idea.
Everything is exiting at the same time. So this whole array is acting as one cohesive unit. By contrast, though, if we look at what's inside a ZLX, we can see we've got this horn throat, and here's a side view of it. You can kind of see how it's different compared to the waveguide here. So the distance between the acoustic centers is well outside the distance of a wavelength, roughly 1 inch at 10K. So there's no possible way we can achieve this. So that's why we have the comb filtering here and not here. Short version.
Sure.
Okay? Tried to say that in the least nerdy way possible, haha, but and also noteworthy
Oh my
that
goodness.
Evie didn't simply just add a decimal point for no good reason. There is a substantial difference. These are both the prices for the passive boxes because these are both passive boxes. So, I think we have to do a little head scratching. First of all, that $1,500 thing for the array he was talking about is utter nonsense because a single box is over $6,000 in the touring line array. And again, it has a lot of things involved there. The quality of the drivers. There are 2 high frequencies and 1 12. And then, of course, the rigging hardware and the R&D and the software and all that goes into it. So I guess moral of the story is don't do that. It's not going to work. Go back to our Rorschach drawing we looked at earlier. It's going to sound terrible. It's not going to give you a line array. There's no cheating physics in this deal. If you want a line array, you need a purpose-built line array box. And I think, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, you and I did a show on line array, and it's worth a watch too. Viewers, go back and give that a look because we really dive into the physics and mechanics of what makes a line array a line array. Not the least of which also being the number of boxes in the array dictates the frequency down to which an array acts like an array. So if you hang, even if you take this box, the X2, and you hang 3 of them, you don't have a line array. Even though you have a line array box, you don't have a line array. So it's just physics, I'm afraid. So.
Excellent. I think that'll actually eat up a couple of our next couple of questions because we talked about, and again, the laying out. So let's jump down to the, let's talk about the mini column speakers since we've been kind of talking about the line array. Some people, are saying that the mini columns I can get a decent sound, but I need to have more horsepower, and they've been trying to add other speakers, whether it's subwoofers, which I don't want to get into with this specific spot. We'll start with the adding top speakers, trying to get more coverage or more sound pressure using a top cabinet with our mini column speakers.
Yeah, same rules apply. So now we've added a column array and a point source box to each other. And again, that doesn't get us out of physics jail. Don't overlap the high frequency coverage areas. You're not going to achieve what you think you're going to achieve. You could use them together, but in the same types of scenario we looked at earlier where they're not pointing at the same place. So if you need to add a coverage area, yes. If you're trying to add amplitude, no. You're just at odds with physics. You're going to create an acoustic mess, and there's just no way I can put a stamp on that and say it's recommended. So this is one of those moments like we talked about it early on in the show. If you came here for affirmation, you're not going to get it. If you tell me it sounds great, I'm going to just quietly judge you. So I'm going to say, no, it doesn't, and to be blunt, maybe you just don't know the difference. And, those are probably some really harsh words. And again, I'm sorry if I hurt anybody's feelings, but I'm here taking my time to help you. And the only way I can do that is to give you the honest answer and say, no, it doesn't make it better. And if you think it does, then we need to have a discussion about that. So, so don't do it, please. Not if I'm in the room, because I don't want to hear it.
I don't want to experience it. For those who are, when we're talking about the dispersion, the width of the audio throw, there's generally a difference between what our mini column arrays are going to give us for coverage width-wise and a traditional two-way cabinet. Kind of give us an idea of what those differences would be.
Well, a couple things occur. In a column array, it works very similar to a line array. It's the same essential physics. We have a number of drivers that are interacting together as a singular source. And when we lengthen the array vertically, we actually widen the coverage horizontally. But these things are also typically engineered for a really nice wide coverage. So we're going to have typically, 90 degrees on a point source box, like a two-way, and we're going to very often have 110 to 120 on a column array. Again, there's some physics that goes into this. Some of these use waveguides. The Evolve 50 uses waveguides, and I believe so does the new Maui 28 G3. So that's going to help preserve the linearity of the coverage across the pattern. But there's every engineering is always a series of compromises. You can trade off SPL for musicality or linearity, and engineers have to go through all these gyrations to say, well, what's the compromise we want that gets us the best of everything, and of course within a price point, right? Because as we saw just a minute ago, Evie makes a 12-inch speaker that's $450, and Evie makes a 12-inch speaker that's over $6,000.
Yeah.
And you can bet they're not the same. In fact, I've used both, and I'll tell you they're not the same.
Certainly, yeah.
Not
Wouldn't
even
expect
close.
them to be, yeah.
No, of course not. I mean, that would be ridiculous. I mean, all of us who bought the $6,000 ones would be idiots if that were the case, right? I mean, it just painted a great big stupid on my forehead, but they're worth it. They're actually a fantastic bargain, for what they do. And that it does make them better than the $400 speaker, but it doesn't necessarily make them better for every application. I don't use them every gig. That'd be silly. I also own a whole bunch of EKXs, and I use those all the time.
Right.
Right, rig for the gig.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. So we talked earlier about the top speaker being on the floor. So we talked about the too low, but how about on the other extreme? Is it possible to put a top speaker too high or inappropriately place it up in the air wrong for an application?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when we're talking about an infinite space, you could certainly put it too high, where maybe it wouldn't be effective in terms of SPL, but I think now I'm being a little bit silly with physics. Let me see what I've got in my little bag of tricks here. Let's take a look at this. So
there we go.
What we can see here is a top that's elevated, and this graphic actually was to illustrate the difference in arrival time between the top and the sub, but I think I can use it for this discussion here. And we can see that we've angled this top down. The simplest way to describe good audio is point the loud part at the people. So, we say, well, this is the business. Whoops, hey, whoa, what's going on here? This is the business end, and we're going to point it at the stick figure down here, who's obviously not having as good a time as he was a minute ago. But anyway, he's I don't know, he's like, whatever, man.
Well, I'm guessing that the Jack Black song is over, and there's this part of disappointment that nothing following that could be as good.
Exactly. He's slumped into a deep,
sadness. Yes. Sadness.
Yeah. So he's like, play something I can dance to. Anyway, so, and of course, I was a DJ for, 15 years. I mean, every time somebody would say that, I'd be like, wow, I never thought of that. What a great guy. What a great idea. I should play something people could dance to. How come I never thought of that? That's weird. Anyway.
New thing.
Thanks for saving the day. Anyway, boy, I tell you what, my sarcasm is really coming out today. Put me out on a couple of tour shows over the weekend and look at me getting all salty.
Getting a little crotchety.
Here.
Make sure the kids stay off the lawn, man. That's way.
So a couple advantages to going up high, and that is that by doing this, I can, let's go blue. My distance here and my distance here are not as dramatic as if my speaker was here. So, the difference here might only be, 3 dB difference, as opposed to here it might be a 6 dB difference or more.
Yep, I see what you're saying.
So this helps. Plus, this speaker is going to be about minus 6 dB. Oh, that's hard to write. When I get to the edge of the pattern. So this might actually work out to be pretty much even, just because I'm losing 6 dB because of the distance here, but I'm losing 6 dB because of the pattern here. And so it works out to be about the same across the listening area. So, could be some real advantages. Now, like to your question, could I get too high? Yeah, I suppose you could, because, if this thing gets higher and higher, the angle is going to have to get steeper and steeper. And, at some point it probably doesn't make any sense anymore, Now, certainly we do speakers overhead in gymnasiums, things like that. But I think that from a portability standpoint, from a deployability standpoint, there's probably a point where it just doesn't make a lot of sense anymore. And I'm kind of reticent to put a number on that right now, but I think we kind of get the idea.
Right,
where,
yeah.
getting higher could be problematic.
So you of course mentioned, pointing the loud part at the people. Now, are we talking in this situation, are we visualizing that the woofer is the loud part, or are we wanting to have that tweeter in essence be the loud part that we want to make sure is aimed at the people?
Well, both, because really, let's just say that there's an acoustic center of this loudspeaker that encompasses both of those. We shouldn't hear the tweeter over the woofer and vice versa. If the loudspeaker manufacturer did their job, we should hear full bandwidth sound coming out of the acoustic center of that box. So when I say point the loud part at the people, I'm basically saying the front of the loudspeaker.
Sure.
It's not like we have to worry about this as opposed to this. We're splitting hairs here. If we really wanted to get specific about it, we could probably assume it's in the middle,
And just kind of have that aiming towards our sweet spot, and off we go.
Yeah, exactly. And in this case, we can see that this speaker, ooh, goodness, could not color inside the lines. We can see that this speaker is not pointed directly at the person. And the reason for that is this is simply an illustrative graphic,
Right.
Because again, knowing that my pattern is going to vary slightly at the edges, maybe that's what gave me the best coverage.
So now, in this situation, if a person were standing literally in front of that subwoofer, a foot in front of that subwoofer, let's say, they're probably potentially missing some of the highs that are not being diverted down towards them from this application or this picture.
Correct.
Okay.
Which really is a good thing to think about as we start to think about our front fills. Engineering is a series of compromises. Now, again, the pattern does not stop at whatever the vertical pattern is. It just begins to become less, as it gets down here. So they're probably still going to hear some, but we might need to adjust the tilt of the speaker, to your point, know? So.
Yeah. Do we want to jump into the fill, talking about front fills?
Sure.
Let's jump into that, and we can come back and talk about placement of subwoofers, or maybe we were going to run out of time. Let's talk about the fills, though. I think that's an important one. So those opportunities when we are playing to a little bit larger crowd, and we do have our tops up like that, which for many people is doable with their gear. But then as we just demonstrated or just diagrammed, there could be a somewhat of a dead spot in front.
Yeah, let's. I'm making this up as I go now, but let's do this. So let's say this is the horn pattern we saw earlier. And in the horizontal space, when the speaker is oriented as the badge on the front of it looks, so when the speaker's facing upright, if that's the way it's intended to be used most of the time.
Yeah.
Now, some of these do have monitor cuts and things that allow you to use them on their side, but let's just pretend that right now this has got 90 degrees of coverage in the horizontal plane and maybe 50 in the vertical plane. So if we look at these two speakers, this is supposed to be a top-down view, but obviously I can't draw a stick figure in a top-down view, or he'd just be like a circle, right?
Yeah, that wouldn't look. And you'd never see exactly how much they didn't care as they're waving their hands in the air.
So that's what's going on here. We've got these two speakers, and my coverage patterns do not cover where my person is standing.
And they are so sad and upset that they lay down.
Right. So a couple things we could do here to solve this. One would be we could tow these speakers in a little bit, because maybe we don't need the coverage out here on the sides. Or two, we could add some front fills. Now, in most DJ scenarios, this is less of an issue, but in a concert, this is much more of an issue. And we do have front fills because the arrays are hanging out. The stage might be 60 feet wide. No way you're hearing that PA 60 feet apart if you're in the front 10 rows. So we put speakers down on the stage or on top of subs in front of the stage or whatever, but right down in front, we put speakers that are called front fills that are designed to fill the front.
Now, is there anything special with trying to avoid the combing that we were talking about earlier when it comes to front fills, or is it one of those things that there's just going to be so many bodies there you really don't worry about it?
It's a little both. Obviously we don't put all the front fills right next to each other. They are spaced apart as well. There's still going to be some comb filtering and some phasing at certain spots. the good news is it's minimal because of the spacing, and unless you move side to side, you don't hear it. So, we're sort of counting on that. We're
Sure,
kinda like,
that makes
well,
sense. Yeah.
One, don't make it as dramatic as putting two speakers side by side, and two, count on people who can't move across the aisle. But if you do during sound check, if you walk left to right in front of a stage, you can hear it.
You'll notice it. Yeah.
Yeah, it shouldn't be disruptive. The sound should be good for every seat. These are the big money seats, so it really has to be good there.
Yeah, that would be, you want to make sure you're doing the job again, making sound, making good sound, and continue making sound. Or no, I don't remember.
Make sound, continue to make sound, and then when possible,
Make good sound. There we go. Yeah, I knew there was a third one there. So, actually, that's taking us right to the end of our time tonight, Ben. That went quick.
All right. Well, good deal.
Yeah,
Made it.
that went really quick, and had some good information there. Good information indeed. Up next, you go to DJNTV.com/chill tonight. Jay and Brian and Howie and John are going to be in there, I believe, tonight, talking with the Tuesday Night Music Show. You can join them. It starts in about 10 minutes. Again, DJNTV.com/chill. And you guys can hang out there and have some fun with that.
Talk about green Jello.
Yep.
Talk about Presidents of the United States of America, because they sang the real Peaches.
I was hoping actually it was going to be Jack Black singing that.
I could go for that.
And that one would have been kind of fun to see. And
I do like Jack Black. I just
yeah. After you watch the video of him singing Peaches to the Mario character.
No, I remember because my son went to the movie and he showed me the video clip.
So you've seen it. All right. Yeah.
It sort of all came back. It was sort of a thing I tried to forget about.
Yeah, it might be one of those moments. Yes, you wanted to definitely do that. Oh, Danny has a question. Danny, thank you for the question. Ideal distance for spacing the Evolve 50s without having to tow them out away from each other.
Yeah, again, noting that they have a 120-degree horizontal pattern, I would say 8 feet or so is probably the minimal number, and you're still going to hear a little bit of that phasing, in the very front center overlap, but it won't be very much, won't be as bad. And again, the good news is the solution is simply to tow them out. It's a very easy fix. Here again, little science fair. Go take them out and play with it a little bit, give it a little try.
Let's see what happens. Yeah.
Absolutely, give you a chance to kind of really hear what's going on.
Yes, and the neighbors absolutely love hearing Pink Noise played at a high volume. It's just incredible how much they're like, yeah, love this song.
It's my favorite jam.
Yeah, it just goes there. So, once again, thank you guys for being with us tonight. We'll be back in July. We've got for the summer, we're doing one show a month. So we'll be back for a July show and an August show, and then we'll get back to our regular weekly schedule after Labor Day. So, Ben, thanks for coming in tonight, and we will see you next month.
Sounds good. Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.